Hi, everyone, and welcome to the latest monologue. Um, Today, I'm sort of expanding a bit more on something we spoke about with my friend Wandia Joy a few days ago, and it's about the infantilization of Kenyan society. And some people asked me afterwards, like, what are the symptoms of this infantile behavior people talk about? And I there've just been some incidents that have even happened in the last few days. One was the big announcement by the Homa Bay County governor of the launch of a water project in a place called Kaswanga in Homa Bay County. Those who don't know Kaswanga, it is a spot somewhere in Rusinga Island. For those who don't know Rusinga Island, it's an island on Lake Victoria, the world's largest freshwater lake. And somebody came from France to launch a project to supply people with fresh water there. That is infantile. It's perfect snapshot. And what was worrying mostly is the number of comments praising this as a worthy initiative and good work. No, it's not. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. And it just proves you're just, it's just giving a platform for someone, for the Tarzan or white savior narrative to thrive amongst amongst those who came to purportedly implement this project. But infantilization is not only at institutional or governmental level like that. Even in our basic rural societies. Um, my friend, another friend of mine, Jerome Ogola, put up a post about some two kids, some small two young girls. One looked 4 and the other one looked 2, abandoned by a father in soy trading center. And there's a collapse of rural society. Conscious, and you realize that when a conscious person takes kids from home, walks them to a trading center and abandons them, there's a fractious collapse that has happened there. I mean, we've seen them, and let's not use the other part of infantile behavior in Kenya is the use of poverty to excuse everything. No, we've seen them people in the most abject poverty, even street people hanging on to their child. You've seen street mothers hanging on to their child, sheltering that child from the sun, from the cold. So it's not a material thing. It's a philosophical, ideological thing that has collapsed. My mom's a farmer. She has such trouble getting workers to do the most basic thing. I mean, you now in rural societies in Kenya, you have people who have grown to adulthood and do not know how to take care of chicken. People don't know how to take care of dogs, goats, cows, sheep. When did that happen? Even when we were kids, every child, not even adults, every child had his pet dog or cat. And when kids would go to play together, you'd see their dogs also just sitting there waiting for their respective owners to finish playing and go back home. Kids knew how to take care of dogs. They'd feed them, clean them, pluck the ticks off them, do those kind of things. You now have adults who don't know such basic things. You have adults who don't know how to take care of chicken. Every home had chicken. I mean, in the particular, maybe the nomadic societies didn't have it, but like Nyanza, where I came from, Western, every home had chicken. You find people now who don't know how to take care of chicken. Simply like things like feeding them, cleaning the chicken house, putting sawdust for the chicks or whatever. People don't know how to do that. This is this is intellectual or societal poverty at such a basic, abject level. We become infantile. You teach an adult how to take care of chicken. You can understand now that children are in much worse trouble, which is obviously a much more involving thing. When a society becomes infantile to this level, anything can be brought in. Anything can be brought in, and anything new or foreign becomes right or good, especially anything backed by money. This is the nature of our tourism industry. This is the nature of our education system, and so many different things. This is why farmers who've been growing food crops or whatever crop for X years, suddenly you can walk into his farm today and tell me, I want you to grow this new crop, Artemisia or Stevia or Rumex. And suddenly he'll say yes. He won't say no, I'm okay. I'm doing well growing potatoes or raising goats or whatever it is he's doing. Because he's infantile. He thinks somebody's coming suddenly knows what's best, what's better than what he's been doing for 30 years. This is why foreigners come here and find us living with wildlife which we've lived with for millennia, and they now come to tell us how to conserve it. Creating awareness of elephants in Samburu, creating awareness of lions in Narok, in Masai Mara, creating awareness of about elephants in Amboseli. Nonsense. But we are infantile. So, oh, he's come, he's got a nice new Land Rover, he may be white, especially if he's white. That's perfect. And it's the same thing. Some time back I was interviewed by RT about somebody wanted to bringing back some elephants from the UK to Kenya. These elephants had been taken away some years ago. And I said, no, keep them in the UK. If the elephants are uncomfortable in the UK, it should be a lesson to you never to take elephants out of Africa to the UK. Don't bring them back and want to feel good that you have added 13 elephants to our 50,000 elephants and now you call yourself a conservationist. But we don't see the philosophical problem with that. That's why just a couple of days ago, someone made a big fanfare of bringing some mountain bongos from Florida, the United States. And now that person is going to be allocated a large area of forest in Mount Kenya forest to rehabilitate these bongos. I've said before how rhinos are useful for grabbing rangelands. Bongos are perfect for grabbing water catchments. If you want to grab a water catchment, bring mountain bongos. We'll give you a piece of Aberdare forest, Mount Kenya forest. We can give you maybe even a Buru forest. And KWS is there, the colonial watchman at the airport to receive them at night. Because we are infantile. I don't know how much we have mountain bongo populations in Kenya. How much resources has KWS devoted to conserving those in Aberdare Forest, Mount Kenya Forest, Eburu Forest? But you are now excited by the ones being brought in because these are now new, these are American bongos. Maybe they even have different accents. Nonsense. How much money has KWS put into trying to 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 conserve to conserve the wildlife we have in situ before having people bring them in? But Kenya has always been, since the days of Hemingway, Roosevelt, and those people, Kenya has been the white explorer's dream, an infantile African population willing to do whatever it is you want. That's the sad truth. It's very sad, but it's the truth. You have to live with. And on the political scene right now, you see this desperation everywhere. There's a fight for hearts and minds. Politicians are speaking at fever pitch, traveling constantly around the country. They're never in the offices. You'd think we're in campaign season, in which in some way we are, and they're chasing shadows, wondering what's the problem. The problem, let me help these politicians. Hopefully, they can save some money. The problem is not that anyone is fighting anybody. The problem is that there's, first of all, two things. Kenya has a very hugely youthful population. Over, I think, 70% of our population falls under the category of youth. The protests that happened last year were successfully fizzled out. Some of the youth were recruited and became court jesters. Um, but what happened last year is that people woke up, and anybody who is a parent will tell you, or who has observed parents will tell you, when your child matures, your parenting style must mature with the child. If you've been feeding the child bullshit, for lack of a better term, during his or her young days when they couldn't understand everything, the BS has to end when they've grown up, because they now know, their eyes have opened, and that process is irreversible. And secondly, there is nothing you can do about it. Even at basic point, when your baby learns to speak, your communication or parenting style has to change. And this is what they're running around trying to, politicians are running around looking for the babies that are now gone. The babies have grown up. So people now understand, and people look at you. We can talk about the AUC election debacle. We had this inexplicable confidence that was based on nothing. If you think about it now, what is it that would make anybody support the Kenyan position on a continental level? All Kenya's positions on continental or international issues have been pro-West. None have been pro-Africa. We even supported Israel in the issue, the war in Gaza. When a problem broke out in DRC, our head of state proudly said that he immediately called the French President Macron. Why on earth would Africa vote for our candidate? Yet when the loss happened, we were all suddenly shocked. The party venues had been booked and everything. And we started blaming the Francophone, we blamed the Muslims, we blamed the Arabs, we even blamed certain ethnicities back home here. That's infantile behavior. And if you want to see where we are heading, look at West Africa. People have tried wondering what's going on over there. Those West African countries that have suddenly turned back on they're back on the French hegemony that's held them for so long. They just grew up. That's what happened. It's as simple as that. But in Kenya, internationally, even within this country, we are so resolutely infantile that it's maddening. You see it all over the place. I recently went to a leading health facility in Kenya to see a consultant. I had an appointment, and it's normal. Like, they've normalized making their patients wait for 3 hours. I had an 11:30 appointment. By 3:20, I hadn't been seen, and I made a huge stink about it, and I got seen. But what struck me is that this is normal. They don't feel anything. I remember even writing that you when you want to, it's only when a doctor becomes a consultant, then you know how he or she was brought up. That's when you realize what the kind of person they are. But this has been normalized. They give you an appointment and you write it down, and the moment you get in, you pay. And you pay the consultation fee, then you wait for 4 hours. That's not acceptable. But we've been infantilized that a doctor is such a great person. You should be able, you should wait for however long it takes, regardless how sick, old, or whatever you are. That is what infantilization of a society. I recently went to a parents meeting at a school where I'm supporting a child. He's now in Form 4, and they wanted to meet parents of candidates and guardians. So we went there and I expected to hear about academic progress. This young counselor comes in and launches into this advice on parenting. And first of all, my assessment, he was probably in his early 30s, certainly not old enough to have a child of of Form 4 age, 17 years old. So he's probably in his early 30s. And he launches into this advice to parents, all of whom are older than him. Some are even grandparents. And he says all sorts of things that parents should do at home. And he even says, he even advised single mothers that on how to behave or how not to behave with their male partners in order to avoid distracting their sons. I mean, I was appalled. How do you advise a parent who has been a parent for 17 years, a successful parent at that, because their child is now about to do KCSE, on how you think they should behave around their family, how they should run their lives around their child? But this has become normalized. You see young people, young foreigners even coming to advise farmers on what to plant, on how and when to vaccinate your livestock, um, on how you shouldn't use farmyard manure, on how you shouldn't sell milk to your neighbor. This is the infantilized structure of our society that we find so comfortable. And even if you look at farmers, look at rural Kenya, the typical rural setup, homes had animals, they had kitchen gardens, they had livestock, they even had pets and all that. But right now, I can tell you from my mom's experience, she's a farmer. It's so hard to get workers now who know how to do anything. You find actual adults in Kenya today who don't know how to take care of chicken, who don't know how to take care of dogs, who don't know how to take care of goats. And I take care of chicken, I mean it's feeding them, cleaning the chicken house, and all this kind of thing. Things that every home used to have. So this collapse has happened from the top to the bottom of Kenyan society. And the sort of growth, the sort of pains our society is going on through now are the pains of growing up. Growing up is late maturity can be painful. And Kenya is actually maturing very late. We've been infantile for very long. That's why we are the imperialists, perfect, the imperialists' dream, if I may put it that way. But free advice, this society is growing up, and growing up is irreversible. And there's absolutely nothing you can do about growing up. Um, in Luo, we have a saying, "Diangok me," as you can't put back a calf that has been born, you can't put it back inside the mother. And it means that growth, it basically means growth, birth, growth is irreversible. And when it happens, you have to manage it. And when you manage it well, it's a wonderful thing. But Kenyans, our leaders, our professionals, and especially my generation, have been so comfortable in the childlike infantile stage that we are suffering and struggling to deal with the grown-up stage. So basically, my message to those whose eyes have opened, congratulations to the young generation. To my generation, my message is grow up, or these kids are gonna kick you out of the way.